Hi guys, my name is Taylor Renwick and I am presenting for EDL 550, Foundations of Higher Education. In this presentation, I will be discussing the Wisconsin idea, social gospel, key players, a brief overview of the article, themes, the importance of this article, as well as pressing questions. The article that I will be discussing is titled The University and the Social Gospel, The Intellectual Origins of the Wisconsin Idea by David Hoeveler, Jr. The purpose of this reading is to explain the Wisconsin idea, link evangelical ideals, the social gospel, and the new university, and identify changes in the university's roles. According to the University of Wisconsin's website, the Wisconsin idea is the principle that the university should improve people's lives beyond the classroom. Hoeveler explains that the Wisconsin idea pledged the University of Wisconsin to serve the state by applying its research to the solution of public problems. Simply put, the Wisconsin idea is a way to send a state to college. The definition of a social gospel is a religious social reform movement that was prominent from about 1870 to 1920, especially among liberal Protestant groups, for example, evangelical groups, dedicated to the betterment of industrialized society through application of biblical principles of charity and justice. The significance of this is that the evangelicalists thought that by educating students to become public servants, they would be performing their charity and justice duties. They would be helping to create people that would be problem solvers and help propel society forward in a form of evolution. The importance of the Wisconsin idea is that it developed a new meaning and purpose for American universities. The Wisconsin idea was an effort to bring together the resources of the state government, the University of Wisconsin, and citizens groups to solve social, political, and economic issues. It became the university's goal to educate people so that they would be able to help solve society's social issues upon graduation. The University of Wisconsin served as a model system for providing educated, responsible experts to fill the state's civil service in a range of fields. As a matter of fact, by 1907, 41 faculty members were serving the state on one or more commissions. The key players are John Bascom, Richard Ely, and John Commons. John Bascom was the 5th president of the University of Wisconsin and the true originator of the Wisconsin idea. He was an evangelist that saw Darwin's new theory of evolution as proof of God's powers at work. He was a champion for women's rights and the dignity of labor. He outlined the new philosophy of state for America. In other words, he gave a new purpose to the meaning of higher education. Universities were not just meant to educate people on religion, but they were also now instructed to teach people about the social sciences, including sociology, economics, and history. He created the Wisconsin idea, and in his idea was the new university would educate more and more students to improve American democracy and expect from them service to society throughout their lives. What this means is that the students would become educated on behalf of the state so that when they graduated, they could then enter the state to solve some of the social issues and problems that were arising, including prohibition, women's rights, and dignity of labor. Richard Ely founded the American Institute for Christian Sociology. He was the creator of New Economics, a new gospel of hope for the eradication of the ills brought by laissez-faire. This further supports that universities are developing a new purpose, to educate the people in social sciences so that they can fix the problems in society. He was also an evangelist. This is important to note because evangelicalism is a theme in this article. Ely employed all the force and style of evangelical rhetoric, but he crucially shifted the focus of religious outreach. Another man that shifted the focus of religious outreach during this time period was John Commons. He was a professor of economics in Ely's new school. He is considered the link between evangelicalism and progressivism. Progressivism means the union of Christian ideals with the social sciences. So why is that important? It's important because it too furthered Bascom's Wisconsin idea. Universities now felt a sense of moral obligation to educate students in the social sciences so that they could better serve the state. This was a form of charity as described by the evangelicals. The major themes in this article are evangelicalism and evolution. Bascom's goal was to preserve the essential objectives of evangelical ideology while reconstructing that ideology to accommodate the public sphere. This is the whole basis of the Wisconsin idea, was that it was originated in the fundamental ideology of evangelicalists, but that it was morphed into a way that would help better serve society. Bascom was in fact making an important modification of the evangelical format. He now turned to the state as a surrogate for churches and voluntary societies. Along with the evangelicalism comes the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is defined by Hoeveler as a physical, intellectual, social, and spiritual product. Bascom was obsessed with trying to create this sort of utopia, or a kingdom of heaven on earth. And he did this via the spiritual and moral advancement of mankind, something that he believed could be taught in universities. He believed that teaching graduates about how to become better public servants of society would help solve the growing issues that the society faced, like prohibition, women's suffrage, laissez-faire economy, etc. He also wanted to create a Protestant America by having personal and public morality serve as its foundation. In order to achieve this, university presidents would teach seniors about the doctrines of a moral universe, or in other words, the kingdom of heaven, and of its innate moral ideas in the human mind. Next, I'm going to show you some information regarding the social sciences and the mentions of kingdom of heaven and evangelicalism, as well as evolution. So what you see on the screen right now are some examples and mentions of either evangelicalism or the kingdom of heaven. On page 288, 289, and 292, the author of the article, The University and the Social Gospel, truly highlights the theme of evangelicalism and Christianity. To continue, Hoeveler also identifies the kingdom of heaven and evangelicalism on pages 297, 298, and 283. The most important example of evangelicalism is on page 283 when the text reads that Bascom, Ely, and Commons found in the new role of the university the logical and critical vehicle of their ideals, the perfection of the Christian state. What this means is that the three key players were trying to create a Christian state, and in order to do so, they needed to modify their evangelical beliefs so that they could form a pure form of Christianity. This is the basis of the Wisconsin idea. Out of these religious-esque moral obligations, universities would prepare students to discover solutions to social problems. This idea was a new form of missionary work. Every home or business in the state would feel the long outreach of the state university. If universities could only educate students enough so that they would be able to be specialized in the social sciences, the thought and belief was that many of the issues could be resolved. So the state would help students attain an education at a state university, and in return, the graduates of the state university would work in the state to provide a source of betterment for society and find resolutions to some of their ethical, political, and religious problems. The second theme that this article discusses greatly is evolution. It talks about the evolution of evangelicalism as well as the evolution of higher education. Education evolved from just teaching Native Americans as well as Englishmen about Christianity to universities that would not only educate their students about Christianity, but also about the social sciences as well. On page 287 of the article, it explains that evolution gave a whole new sense to the concept of the kingdom of God. It was perceived that the kingdom of God was created through evolution because it was God's will that society would move forward through education. Another example of this is on page 287, when the text reads that evolution gave a whole new scope to human intellect, an intellect that would be used to better society according to the Wisconsin idea. Van Heis's version of the Wisconsin idea transformed Bascom's sense of a spiritual power into a doctrine of economic growth. All in all, I thought that this was a pretty good article. This material is important because it established a new calling for American universities. American universities were now engaged to prepare students to solve societal issues. The Wisconsin idea is important in today's society because one of the main purposes of college is to produce an educated workforce that will innately dictate the course and evolution of society. Graduates are entering society with the understanding that they are meant to fulfill a purpose. In other words, they are meant to solve societal problems, whether they are minuscule or enormous. Reading this article helps us advance our understanding of higher education because we now have a foundation of the purpose of colleges. It is essential to examine history in order to enhance knowledge. We now can see how the evangelical influences of key players like Bascom, Ely, and Commons affect society today. According to evangelical ideology, bettering society through education has developed into a new form of missionary work. That can be found on page 298 of the article. Though not all colleges have a religious affiliation, the focus of bettering society remains intact. I was always curious about the transition from evangelicalism to progressivism because the church plays a huge role in both ideologies, but the role differs slightly. I consistently questioned how American universities shifted from primarily educating American Indians and Englishmen about Christianity to educating countless individuals about more than just religion. This article gives insight into universities' transitions from pious institutions focused on Christian conversion to public serving institutions. If it weren't for Bascom modifying the evangelical ideology, who knows where American universities would be today? Bascom reconstructed the evangelical ideology so that he could preserve the essential objectives of the evangelical ideology while reconstructing that ideology to accommodate the public sphere. In other words, he molded evangelicalism to fit the new educational objective, which it was to equip people with morals, purposes, and education so that they can continue to solve societal problems. At first I found this article very confusing because there were a lot of additional information, and it was difficult to identify its purpose. For example, the article provided detailed backgrounds on all three key players in the Wisconsin idea. While it is interesting to know that Bascom was in support of prohibition, I do not see its relevance in regards to this article. Additionally, the article was hard to follow because it did not clearly define the Wisconsin idea or social gospels. I ended up searching these terms in Google to find better definitions and articles that would provide additional insight into what I was reading. In fact, the best article I could find was actually the one highlighted on the University of Wisconsin's homepage. Even the author of the article, David Hoeveler, had a hard time defining the Wisconsin idea. On page 294, Hoeveler says that Bascom never wholly articulated the Wisconsin idea in a concrete way. It would have been more helpful for Hoeveler to provide a brief section where he interprets what the Wisconsin idea is, or better yet, if Hoeveler provided a more concise summary of the article, readers would have an easier time digesting the information. Additionally, Hoeveler never once defined the social gospels. It was left up to the reader to decipher what he meant by that. Based on the reading, I thought it had something to do with religion playing a role in academia, but I was not entirely sure, so I looked it up in the encyclopedia. Once I had a clear understanding of what the social gospels were and what the Wisconsin idea was, the article made much more sense. After understanding the article and the arguments made, I have to agree with Hoeveler. I agree that the purpose of American universities changed after the Wisconsin idea and the social gospels. As previously stated, I believe that colleges are educating students with the purpose of preparing them for the workforce so that they can become contributing members of society and ultimately solve societal issues. Overall, I found this article to be interesting, rewarding, and extremely insightful. The 2 pressing questions I have for you are: 1. Given what you know about the connection between the Wisconsin idea, evangelicalism, and the new American university, how significant is the role of religion in American universities back then compared to its role today? 2. The article states that a new kind of gospel and a new program for social redemption is indeed a new calling for American institutions of higher learning. Do you think this new calling is still evident today? Or do you think there is a different kind of new calling for higher education institutions? Why or why not? And with those questions, folks, I am completing my presentation. Here is a list of resources that I used to help further understand this article, as well as just advance my own knowledge about the information I digested. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to state them in the discussion board, and I will be sure to address them as quickly as possible. Again, thank you for listening, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.